Hey, what is going on, guys? This is the Bogey Free podcast for the Memorial. I am your host, Evan Cheney, today joined by my lovely co-host, Matt Jones.
Lovely. Why,
Yes, that
thank
is
you.
the adjective we're going to use today.
Well,
In a sign of solidarity.
hey, I appreciate it. We're wearing red today.
That's true.
We're starting off on the same page. You said you
now.
were going to be late, and then you weren't late. Like we're off to a good start.
Yeah, no, things are working out well. Just the microphone crackling may or may not occur.
And
So,
apparently, you may or may not be blown away by a tornado. But other than that,
yes, that is.
you have your
that
Thunder
is,
Buddy ready for some
I got
snuggles
nothing.
if you need it.
I got the cat, and I don't know where he is.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
All right.
So we are discussing the Memorial this week.
We are.
Before we get into that, let's talk about last week. Kevin Na.
Kevin Na.
He finally did it.
He did it.
I feel like it had something to do with Paul Casey's withdrawal. I mean, that was brutal. It
wasn't great.
Thursday and Friday was brutal.
Yeah, when you make him a cash lock and then he withdraws with the flu, it's not ideal. But it happens. Apparently he went to the hospital or something, so I guess it was kind of serious. But he's been known to do things like this. So you had the Louis withdrawal right before right before tee off as well, even though it was after a lock.
That was my favorite.
Yeah, so we were already looking. I think it ended up being 5%, 6 of 6 in most contests this week. So if you had a 6 of 6 and you avoided that nonsense, and then the Ricky missed cut and everything else,
yeah. I mean, Rom missed the cut too. I mean, it was just carnage. Xander too.
Yep,
it was
2 weeks in a row.
Carnage.
Rom on the cover, missed the cuts. Great. Yeah, Paul Casey was 46% owned in the listener league. So, speaking of which, shout out Nick Verone, took down the listener league by a point. Had a pretty good lineup. Had Ricky, so missed the cut there, but he had Na and Knox at reasonably low ownership and a top 10 of his own there. So good lineup by Nick as usual. If you know Nick, that shouldn't be a shock to any of you. So he took it down pretty close at the top, and then a huge gap. Kind of from 3 down was pretty ugly.
I'm pretty sure those are just the 3 6 of 6 lineups, and then the other 47 was just a shithole. That was everything.
Yeah. We did have the most 6 of 6s again in the listener league contest on Cut Sweats. So just saying.
There you go.
Yep.
Out of 150 lineups, I had 1 6 of 6.
Yeah.
And that wasn't even my best. That didn't even end up being my best lineup. A lineup with Ricky Fowler was my best lineup. So that's I can definitely tell you.
There were a couple 4 of 6s that I saw floating around that cashed reasonably well in a couple contests.
That's
so
not fair.
Yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, we can get into this week's event. It's at RotoViz. Make sure you get subscribed. $6.99 a month or $25 for the rest of the season. Gets all the usual content for me, the course preview, the Yahoo article, the DraftKings article, the ownership projections for DraftKings, the top 20 model, et cetera, et cetera. And I believe if you go over to Yahoo and you haven't played before, if you put in Viz25, you get a free $25 with your first, I was going to say donation, but I meant deposit, but you know what I mean.
Well, I mean, if you listen to us, it could be a donation to the rake.
Could go either way, but so make sure you get signed up. It's growing. We got some cool tools over there, and should be a good rest of the season and a reasonable price. So hop on that when you see me retweet some of the articles that I'm doing this week.
All right, good shit. Let's talk about Muirfield Village Golf Club.
Yes, let's.
For the Memorial this week. So, Matt, talk about some of the stats here that you'll be looking at. Talk about the course, talk about the stats, and how you will plan on building a player pool this week.
Yeah, it's a course that we should be familiar with. Much like last week, it's played host to this tournament since '76. It's Jack Nicklaus design. You'll see plenty of Jack Nicklaus on Golf Channel and everywhere else this weekend. It's a reasonably long par 72, about 7,400 yards. I think water's in play on 11 holes. There's 13 water hazards. There's 73 bunkers. It's bent grass greens that run super quick. So we've seen lots of different types of golfers win at this course before. I would say is a pretty fair assessment. For me, it's all about sort of getting in position off the tee and then getting into a good second shot. The rough is sort of difficult to get out of, so hitting some fairways is important. You can't just completely spray it, but obviously having shorter clubs into these greens with a bunch of different tiers are going to is definitely going to be a benefit to your guys. So strokes gained off the tee is a little bit more important this week for me than most weeks. I try to pick between distance and accuracy, but this week I think I want a little bit of both. So I'm going with that. Obviously hitting greens in regulation like usual is going to be important. Yeah, so that's about it. I mean, it's a pretty standard week, nothing too crazy. Just hit fairways, hit greens, and make putts. Yeah.
If only it were that easy in real life.
Well, for some of us.
Yeah. All right. So let's get to some of our chalk guys here. So our most expensive chalk will be Tiger Woods at 11,200. How are you feeling about Tiger this week?
He's an interesting one because we obviously saw him do extremely well and take down the Masters. He was on a streak for a while there that he looked like he was just completely, performing better than we probably would have expected, say 2 or 3 years ago. And then at Bethpage, he looked supremely mortal. Apparently, he was sick. He still hit almost 60% of his greens. He really just sprayed it off the tee and didn't really get much to many putts to fall. So I don't have an issue playing Tiger this week. I don't think that any of the top 5 guys, so like the 10K and up range, I don't think any of them are going to get like super out of control as far as ownership goes. I think it'll be pretty flat. So between him and the guy that we're going to talk about in a second, Cantlay, if ownership goes out of control on any of these top 5 guys, I'm very comfortable fading and pivoting elsewhere because I think this is a pretty strong field, all things considered. So if his ownership stays reasonable, I think I'll have a few shares of Tiger, but I don't really I don't see going like fully in until we're sure that he's like okay.
Yeah. So just a thing of note here, and maybe kind of note of how little we should consider putting. Tiger lost 7.7 strokes putting here last year. Still came in 23rd.
Yeah.
Now
I call that the anti-speed.
Yeah. I mean his tee to green game and approach game were great. Right? 14.2 and 11.2 strokes gain here respectively. Right. But those almost 8 strokes lost on putting, he really shot the bed there.
So. Yeah, not great. And obviously, you can say whatever you want about course history, but everybody will be talking about how Tiger has won here before too. So I'm sure that will goose a little bit of extra ownership towards him. But I think I'd rather save the $1,000 if ownership is the same and just pay 10-2 for Cantlay. He was like almost unbelievably hit it unbelievably well on approach last year here. He gained over 10 strokes on approach here last time out. and finished in fourth. He's been great. Like, he just hasn't had that signature like breakthrough victory, but he has two straight third place finishes. He was ninth at the Masters. He missed the cut at Sawgrass, but in his 8 starts this year, he's had 6 top 15 finishes. So not too shabby. The only problem is in those other 2 starts he missed the cut. So there's some built-in volatility, I think, with Cantlay, but just from an all-around game perspective, I think he's playing just about as well as anybody on tour right now. And I think that you could definitely do a lot worse than getting your fair share of Cantlay this week.
Yeah, no, I mean, you can argue that Cantlay's coming into this tournament with the best hot streak or just the best recent form going into this thing. So, of course, recent form is what we're weighing the most here out of anything. And he's definitely better than Tiger in those categories, at least as of, the last month or two.
Right.
All those rounds. So, yeah, I would definitely consider Cantlay over Tiger, for $1,000 cheaper. Now, like you're talking about, ownership might be a problem, right? Because if if people are objectively looking statistically at these two golfers, they're the same, they're probably going to go Cantlay, right? Because you want to save that $1,000, but you could go either way.
Yeah, I'm going Cantlay.
Yeah. All right. So let's jump down here to Mr. Skechers himself, Matt Kuchar at 9,400. How do you like Kuchar this week?
I mean, he's just, everything is coming together for him to like push 25%, I would say, in a lot of GPPs. He's in the last 5 years here, he has nothing worse than a 26th place finish. He's made 15 straight cuts this year, dating back to the fall. And his worst finish in his last 4 starts is a T12. So all the popularity, he's going to be a fade for me this week. It would not shock me if he, finished in the top 15 or something like that. But at the ownership that he's probably going to end up seeing, I'm having a hard time eating all that ownership when there's so many good pivots off of him that we'll get to in a little bit. But I'm going to probably be fading Kuchar and just hoping for the best there.
Yeah, I can definitely name a better play for slightly cheaper or maybe slightly more expensive, depending on how you want to go there. There's definitely guys you can play around him at that price point. That'll be good ownership pivots and might even be the statistically better golfer for this course.
There you go.
Now we go down the line here. We'll get to our cheap chalk play here in Emiliano Grillo, or really it's Grillo, if we want to talk about, Spanish pronunciation, but don't mind me and my 5 years of Spanish education. So.
Oh man, the day that Evan is schooling us on fucking pronouncing things.
But I mean, everyone needs a good Spanish lesson once in a while, right?
Yeah.
So how do you feel about him this week?
Yeah, I felt pretty good about him in general until I started thinking about his ownership. I think he could push close to 20% at this price. He's made all 3 cuts in his starts here, which will give him a few extra percentage points of ownership. In the past 3 starts that he's had, he has improved each week, hitting more greens every week. He finished 19th, I believe, last week, and is averaging almost 6 strokes gained tee to green over his past 3 events. So there's a lot to like there for obvious reasons. But the only knock against him, I would say, is his lack of distance. And not just, I mentioned before that I'm not just focusing on distance this week, but just generally, Grillo doesn't really perform as well on these longer courses. Since let's filter this out. Over the past 3 years, since the start of 2017, he gains less strokes tee to green, hits less greens in regulation on courses over 7,300 yards. So from a fit perspective, I think that there's a little bit to be desired there, but from a form perspective, like he's playing excellent golf, hitting a lot of greens. So I would say if he stays in like the 10 to 12 range in ownership, he's somebody that I'm pretty interested in. And if he pushes up towards like 17, 18% and above that, then I'll just fade him for ownership.
Okay, fair enough there. All right. I mean, I don't have any strong Grillo takes or Grillo takes. He does struggle in certain aspects here. I mean, his around the green game is poor. His short game is poor. So,
yeah.
I mean, I don't like seeing that from guys that I want to have high exposure to in tournaments, right? Even though I might not be considering it the most important stat in the world, I still want them to be good in it.
No, and I think just like you saying that also makes me think if he's going to be hitting fewer greens because he's going to be hitting longer irons into these on his second shot, then you would have to ding him a little bit more because of his lack of around the green game. So that's a pretty valid point, I think.
Yeah.
Look at you just stumbling into stuff here.
Have to, you know. I mean, if you're gonna find the perfect GPP plays, they have to be the stout. They have to be the unicorns, really.
This is true.
Right? I mean, I'm not gonna play a bunch of horses. Speaking of the damn horses, you know what? I can't get into that. I get too angry.
Oh boy.
Goodness. All right.
Well, while Ev tilts the horse racing, make sure you hop into the listener league. It is live right now. I think there's already about 15 people in it. Playing 50 guys again, $5 to get in, top 3 wins. Hopefully someone besides Nick will win this week because I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of Nick winning everything. So
you know what? That actually goes into my next point here, and this doesn't have to do with the Nick that you're talking about. This is a different Nick. My friend Nick is being a dick. So
okay.
let me give you some background here. I'll give you the 5-minute. Not even
5 minutes.
Yeah, right. So we're at our local driving range a few hours ago, right? And they have one of those top tracer machines, right? So it's kind of like Top Golf, but watered down for a local driving range, right? So we play the simulator. We like to play the Pebble Beach course simulator.
Getting ready for the Open. I like it.
Yeah, we got to prepare ourselves, right?
Getting those fire takes ready.
So he admittedly he does beat me in this contest, right? Because I just suck and my new clubs aren't in yet. So and the old ones suck.
The clubs.
The whole thing. It's always the clubs. Never the user. It's always the clubs.
Obviously.
So he sends me the Venmo to pay his share of the bill. He sends with the message Pebble Beach beating. And now I'm ready.
Well,
ready to kick his ass next time.
Actually,
I see him in a few days, so Nick, if you're watching, be ready. But he did give me the money, so I'll take his money.
There you go.
Yeah. All right. So aside from that little rant there, let's talk about the top of this pricing spectrum here. We did talk about Tiger. We did talk about Cantlay. There are other guys here, of course. I mean, we have top names such as McIlroy, Rose, Fowler. We have Spieth, who's kind of coming alive, kind of. I know I said kind of twice, but it is a kind of type thing. And Tony Finau, who really just shat the bed after Thursday. Because that was his tournament.
He finished in second. What are you talking
Objectively,
about?
that was his tournament to lose. And he blew it.
I don't know.
Because he shot a 64 on Thursday. And it was somewhat the equivalent of when Koepka shot us, 63 on Thursday at
He didn't. No,
PGA?
no.
Yeah, no, it was
No, there
it
will
was
be no
Tony's to
Tony
lose.
slander on here right now.
No, I'm
This is
complimenting
ludicrous.
Tony for his good Thursday,
No,
but downing him for his shitty weekend and Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
he played great on Sunday. Nah, he just couldn't catch Nah.
Well, here's the thing though. He shouldn't have been in a situation where he had to catch Kevin Na.
Oh God.
Right? Tony Finau should have been leading wire to wire. But he decided on Friday that he was going to be like some of the horses that I bet on and just stop
he
a
went
quarter of the way
68,
through.
71, 68. Like what? I mean, this is egregious.
I am an egregious person, admittedly.
Well, yeah. I mean,
so
again, spotlight.
So you know what? It's kind of fitting on the brand.
Yeah.
But I would still recommend Finau for this week's tournament. He's just not my favorite play in this range.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he does a lot of things well, absolutely, but has somewhat struggled recently. Not just talking about this past weekend, but I am talking about, last month or so, even 2 months. Not even being top 10 in any strokes gained statistic in his last 24 rounds played.
I can't get
But
on
I
board with
still,
this. I'm trying to be nice,
but I'm still very high on him because I'm always behind his iron game.
Right,
And he has one of the best iron games on tour, and you can never count him out because of that.
Right, and if you were talking about a course that you need to be long and reasonably straight, not that he's not Colt Knost, he's not hitting 90% of fairways, but I think when he needs to, for the most part, he can dial it in a little bit. And, his 90% swing is still going to go 315, but he'll find more fairways. So I don't know. The model doesn't love Tony this week, which is a little bit weird because this is really the first week that I don't do anything to the model. I literally just run it and see what happens. And this is the first week in as long as I've been doing this that it hasn't loved Tony. So that's a little bit weird to me. As far as the 10K and up guys, the model puts them in order: Woods, Fowler, Cantlay, Rory, Rose. Can we talk for a second about how Rose just isn't doing things well as a golfer?
Yeah, he doesn't look right.
He
absolutely doesn't look right.
And I feel like, I don't know, I got so much shit for saying that I didn't like him at Augusta, and then he just lays an egg on Thursday and misses the cut. Then he bounces back at Quail Hollow for a really good finish, and then he just fades again. To me, he's a little bit too reliant on his putter right now. He's hitting over 60% of his greens, which is fine. He's hitting, he's scrambling reasonably well in the 60s and 70s most weeks. He's putting reasonably well too, and for whatever reason, he just still can't put it together. He's just not the same. He's not that guy that climbed to number one last year. He's just not.
No, and I don't know what
he's going to win this week because I'm saying all this shit. But
he's going to win because, first off, you're saying that. Second, he's hardly going to be owned. So he's a lock to win now, right?
Right. So all the roast is what I'm saying.
Yeah. But I mean, seriously speaking on him, his around the green game is not as good as it normally is.
No, he's 2 full strokes below his baseline in strokes gained around the green right now. His over his last 5 rounds or last 5 events, he's losing 0.7 of a stroke around the green, and his career average is a little bit over 1.3. So he's literally losing 2 strokes compared to what he usually is. He's hitting it on approach slightly worse. He's hitting it off the tee a full stroke worse. And again, he's having to make it up with his putter. And if you've listened to this show more than once, I would have to believe that you know that we are not ones to chase hot putters that have nothing else going for them. And right now that's Rose. So I'm perfectly fine with 0% Rose. The Rory thing is a little bit shocking to me. I feel like this is a course that he can just demolish. So I might have to dig in a little bit and look at the model a little bit closer and make some tweaks. But like I said earlier, I'm playing the ownership game up here, and as long as that doesn't lead me to Rose, then I'm fine with it. Whoever I end up landing on from Finau up.
All right. Well, let's dip down here to some of the cheaper golfers to our 8 to 9,500 range here. And we did talk about Kuchar already, but Tony Finau is certainly one of the pivots, the reasonable pivots off of Matt Kuchar around that price range. But of course, we discussed him already. Another guy we can talk about is Justin Thomas.
Yep.
We haven't seen a whole lot of Justin Thomas lately.
No, and he withdrew from the PGA long before lock, thank God, so we didn't have to hear everybody bitch about that. I don't know. I have a hard time thinking, and his relationship with Jack and everything else, wanting to play here. I totally get all that. I have a really hard time believing that he's going to show up here at less than 100% as we're heading into the US Open. Like I don't see that. Unfortunately, it also appears that he's going to be pretty popular this week. So he's not really.
Yeah.
I was hoping to get him at 10%, and I'm very comfortable with a $9,300 Justin Thomas, even if he's at 90% of what he usually is. So if he's going to be popular, I can understand the fade there, but I don't know. I have a hard time believing that he's not pretty well set up for this course, and gearing up towards the US Open coming up here in a couple weeks. So he's the highest by far in this range for my model. The next couple guys below him are Scott and Hideki. All three of those guys, Thomas, Decky, and Scott, are actually above Kuchar in the model this week, so I don't feel completely awful about fading Kuchar. I'm not touching Bryson still. I think there's a case to be made here for Stenson. I don't know. Is there anybody that's really jumping out to you here? I feel like this is one of those weeks where you can click on a lot of these guys in the 8K range pretty comfortably at this price. Yeah. So it's again probably more just playing the ownership game.
Well, I think a hot name that people will be on, just because some of the more serious PGA DFS players have been on this, of course, but Rory Sabatini. Yeah. He's definitely a guy that's been hot lately.
Yeah, what's he made? 9 cuts in a row now?
Yeah.
8 or 9, something like that.
I mean, even like at an $8,300 price point, and with how hot he's been, I do think he'll be a hot name around the DFS industry.
Right.
I mean, it has to be, right? Because his numbers look good, right? Especially if we look at a more, short-term form. 4th tee to green in this field, 5th on short game, 2nd around the green. Right, so guy's going to be, I think he'll garner some ownership. Right, especially as the week goes on, as more articles get written and such, I think he'll garner more ownership, and for good reason, right? I think he's definitely getting hot at the right time, right? And I think he might be able to compete here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Tim Frank tweeted out today, like, this is the first week we have to specify which Rory we like when we're talking about Rory, because of McIlroy too. So yeah, he's definitely going to be popular. I I haven't pulled up fan share, but I'm imagining that he's probably pretty high up there in tags right now. I don't know. I guess like I'd probably rather just play Kokrak if he's going to be lesser owned, which he definitely will be. So yeah, I feel pretty comfortable fading Sabatini just from an ownership perspective, but depending on his odds, I might just throw an outright or a top 5 on him or something, just to a little life hedge there.
Life hedge. I like it. How about last week's tournament winner, Kevin Na, 8,400? How do you like him here?
I mean, I have no data to back this up, but I feel like these kinds of guys that don't win all the time don't do particularly well the week after they win. On top of that, the fact that this is a longer course, I don't love the fit for him. He similar to Griot, he really like his splits are super negative when you go above like 7,300 yards on a course. He hits way fewer greens. Doesn't gain as many strokes tee to green. So I'm pretty comfortable avoiding Na this week.
Okay. I don't know if I have any other takes here, but you did mention Stenson, who is 8,500. Do you have his recent Euro form?
Yeah.
How has he been doing recently on the Euro Tour?
I mean, he hasn't played on the Euro Tour since February, so.
Or what? Just any recent golf he's played? Because I only have PGA.
Yeah, I mean he's played.
Oh, he
he
just
played.
hasn't.
Yeah, Valspar,
Okay.
Masters,
Okay.
Quail Hollow, Byron, PGA Championship.
Because I feel like he was just over here just to prepare himself for the U.S. Open.
Yeah, I mean he's been playing here more often. He played Dubai and Abu Dhabi and all those, Saudi Arabia, but
I mean, even Dustin Johnson, top guys here will go to
right.
Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, and but since Mexico, he's been stateside playing all the PGA events that we've seen him in. So I don't know, man. Like it just seems like the right kind of place for him. Like longer irons, a little bit of accuracy off the tee. It seems like the right kind of place for him if he's going to get it back together, because he hasn't played particularly well. He hasn't finished in the top 20. Or I guess he was 20th at the Byron Nelson. So whatever. He hasn't had a high finish really since the Arnold Palmer, and that was just a 17th place finish. So I don't know. I feel like he'll probably see if he's going to see less ownership than Sabatini, then if you build lineups that leave 8,500 and you want to split your exposure between Stenson and Kokrak, I think that's a fine move instead of playing Sabatini.
All right, sounds good there. Let's drop down to our cheaper tier, so our sub 8K guys. Of course, we already talked about Grillo. We have guys like Kevin Kidd, Lucas Glover at 7,800. Billy Horschel, Sung Kang, Hatton. Who are you liking here?
Yeah, I think that this is this one's kind of tough for me. Like Glover popped in the model, Hatton popped in the model. I never play Hatton. Furyk popped in the model, though I think that might be a little bit skewed because of his recent form, and I don't love his fit on a longer course like this. Like just embrace the tilt and play Benny on. Like that's fine for me. Aaron Wise, I think makes a little bit of sense. He popped in the model quite a bit. I think he's like in the top 10-ish in the model. He hasn't played particularly well in his last 2 starts. But I think that he's closer than people realize. And I think if he's going to be like 6% owned, we could see him in some lineups that finish pretty highly. And then Russell Knox is just playing really great golf lately. So he's another guy that finished pretty highly in the model. And, there's obviously risk there because he will miss a cut every now and then and just eject, but he's coming off a top 10 finish. And I think that we could see him continue that.
Okay. All right, going down the line here. I mean, of course, I always like to hype up Lucas Glover, but I just don't feel like this is the fit for him.
You're just falling off of all your brand guys.
Honestly,
It's crazy.
Because at some point, reality has to kick in, and it's like, all right, do I really want to go ham on these guys? Like paying, like going all in percentage wise on these guys? And a little weary of that.
I get it.
Right? So I'm not high on Glover this week. Unfortunately.
Or fortunately.
Unfortunately. I'm not really too high on a lot of these guys in the sub 8K range. I mean, Sung Kang, like you said, Jim Furyk, absolutely. Definitely a Jim Furyk guy this week. And Charlie Hoffman kind of catches my eye. 7,400. 11 in strokes gained total in his last 24 rounds in this field. I'm tempted.
Yeah, I mean,
God, I don't want to touch Chucky 3 sticks with a 20-foot pole.
Yeah, he's broken.
He's ice cold lately.
I really can't wait to get him at like 4% ownership at the U.S. Open. That's going to be the best part of all this.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's
like get a little Cali bump. I'm excited.
God. How about Johnny Vegas here at 7,200?
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. He played like dog shit at Bethpage, which is a little bit concerning, but bounced back pretty reasonably well last week. He's just always going to be up and down. Like he's always going to be a threat to shoot 65, but he's also going to be a threat to shoot 75 some days. Like that's just who he is. He hit almost 70% of his greens last week, which at Colonial is a pretty decent accomplishment. So yeah, I mean, I can get on board with that. 7,200 is a reasonable price. Oh, I miss Neiman too. Like gotta just get him in.
Joaquin Neiman at 7,300. I'm not a big fan this week, but you are.
Yeah, I mean, again, you have to temper expectations. Last year, we thought that he was, gonna just come out like gangbusters and be Xander Schauffele, and he hasn't been this year. But there's some cause for optimism in his game. He's steadying his off the tee game. His short game has been a little bit better over his past couple of starts. So it wouldn't surprise me if he starts getting it together as we head towards the middle of June and into July.
All right. Is there anyone else here you want to talk about in the 7K? You want to go down to 6K, guys? I think make an argument for Dahmen, Joel Dahmen.
Yeah, make it. What do you got?
It's not a strong case, but it's like he's definitely above average in everything.
Yeah.
Right. So it might not be the most glowing endorsement of a guy, absolutely, but for someone who's 7,000, someone who's slightly above average or above average at every single statistic that you're looking at, it's hard not to consider them.
Yeah.
Right. So,
he's another guy that the ding against him would be just the distance. He has pretty bad negative splits when it comes to courses over 7,300 yards. But I agree. I mean, I think he's a pretty safe bet to make a cut here, and at 7,000, I think that's perfectly reasonable. Yeah, that's fine.
All right. I don't really have any other hot takes in this field, so the floor is yours.
No, I'm going pretty balanced this week. I can't really get behind a lot of these guys under 7,000. Like I'll of course go back to some Sung Jae at like 2% or 3 or 4%. He's missed a bunch of cuts in a row, but I'll throw him in one of those, drive the green lineups just for some fun and to fit in some of the more expensive guys. But outside of that, like, no, I'm good. I'm gonna stay pretty balanced.
All right. You don't like yourself at 6,500?
Yeah. I don't know.
He shot the bed last week too.
Oh boy.
I was relying on him, and he just nah. He's just like nah.
Yeah, I mean, I just pulled it up now on the Splits app. We're talking about Matt Jones for those of you who don't know what we're getting at here, but he has very, very positive splits this year on longer courses, gaining basically like, I don't know, gaining 4 strokes tee to green on longer courses and pretty much neutral tee to green on shorter courses. So it's a pretty significant bump. So maybe if I end up making 20 lineups, I'll end up throwing him in a couple this week. But like I said, I really think I'm going more balanced this time around.
All right. Well, that'll wrap up those guys here. Let's get to our cash locks. Matt, I'll throw it to you first.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna roll for sure with Cantlay at 10-2. I think that's a very reasonable price, and it wouldn't shock me if he was like a top 3 finish here. The cheaper guy is the one that I'm having trouble with. I'm leaning towards Aaron Wise, but I'll just to err on the side of caution here. I think I'll lock in Adam Scott because he's pretty high up there in the model too. So Cantlay and Scott.
He took my guy there. So I'll take McIlroy and Sabatini. So both Roys. There you go. All right, that'll do it for the Bogey Free podcast for the Memorial. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube and iTunes under Bogey Free DFS. And of course, if we're not winning all the money this week, we hope you guys do. So good luck in your contest this week.
See you.